What's up, team? It's Sherman here from Geek Psychology. So I get this question a lot. Well, it's kind of a bunch of different questions wrapped in one, but I have anxiety. I don't know what to do. My life is chaotic. There are these problems. I understand how to approach the situation, but I don't know what to do. I've studied about it. I've learned my type. I've learned how to blah, blah, blah. But I still have anxiety. Help me. And first of all, I'm honored that people come to me for that kind of advice. I have dealt with it a lot in the past, and I do feel that I have some things I can talk about with it. So here we go. We're going to talk about, first of all, what anxiety is, right? Because that's important. And then we're going to go into the MBTI code a little bit. We're going to pick it apart just a little bit so that we understand where this anxiety is coming from within us, and then we'll talk about some things that we can do. And at the end, of course, I want to know your type, and I want to know your approach to it and how you've experienced anxiety. So first of all, let's look at the situation of anxiety. What is it like? I'm sure you can go back into an experience that you've had and you feel sweaty, maybe tingly, your heart's beating faster, right? It's this really uncomfortable feeling. And what it is it's a fear about the future. It's a fear about how things will play out into the future. It's kind of a fear of fear in the future, right? It's not necessarily oh, there's a snake, I'm afraid of snakes. I'm afraid that I'm going to get bitten by the snake. It's more about that, right? But this is usually going within us, right? It's going on within us. It's something that we're creating this stress about, this fear about, because of what will happen in the future. So it could be like you're at a club or a bar or something like that, and you want to talk to somebody, but what are they going to do? What are they going to say? Right? And then you start getting that anxiety. Your heart starts beating faster. You get sweaty palms, right? Things are becoming more and more uncomfortable. It could be, you're going to go home, another relationship one. You're going to go home and you need to have a deep, meaningful talk about something with your partner or your family, right? And then you get anxiety about that because you don't want to bring it up. You don't want to say it. But it's just something you got to say, and right? There's this issue that you got to talk about, and you're having stress, you're having fear about that future situation. Could be going to work, could be not performing properly at work or something like that. I tend to get a little bit of anxiety before doing these videos because it's a little awkward, right? It's a dude sitting in one of his rooms in his house talking to a camera, and then releasing that to however many people might view it, right? So there is a little bit of anxiety about how I will present myself, how things will be taken, how they'll come across. Am I using the right words? And there's a bunch of other stuff that goes on in there, right? So everybody has anxiety about certain little things in certain little ways. Some people are more controlled by it, right? And some other people are not. So anyway, let's talk about what metaphors we're using with anxiety. Some of the ones that I thought of offhand is dealing with anxiety. There's anxiety attack and overwhelm. I'm overwhelmed by anxiety. So if we look at dealing with anxiety, if you think about dealing, the actual word of dealing, maybe not necessarily like poker or something like that, but you're making some choices on how anxiety will influence you and how you're going to let that happen. Like if you were a house or the real estate person or both, depending on how deep we want to get into this metaphor. And then anxiety is a tenant within that, right? Like you're saying, this is something I'm allowing you to do. This is something I'm not allowing you to do. And if you're making deals with anxiety, well, you're giving yourself to them. You're letting them take over certain aspects. Is that something you want to do? Might want to go into yourselves and think about it, all right? Have some conversations with the parts of you that are creating anxiety. If you're new to this channel, this is going to sound a little weird, but if you've been here for a minute, you might be more comfortable with what I'm talking about. Also, there's overwhelm. Like if you think about being overwhelmed by anxiety, well, if you look up overwhelm, it's talking about like feeling the weight of something, being buried by something, usually a liquid. Well, a lot of emotions can be tied to liquid metaphors, right? Are you the container? Are you holding and storing that anxiety, that liquid? And where is it coming from? It's got to come from somewhere. And how is it getting in there? Right? Are you like passing out hoses to people and to situations and saying like, yeah, fill it up, I'm gonna take on this anxiety? Because you might be doing that, right? Or are you just like holding it out, holding yourself out perhaps, trying to catch it and then deal with it later? Like, I don't know. There are tons of different approaches to looking at it. But I'm giving you some ideas here so that you can understand the structure of the metaphor that you're using to understand and to deal with anxiety. Okay. Also, there is anxiety attack, right? So obviously, I mean, we can kind of extrapolate that, right? And imagine that it's somebody or something is attacking you, usually physically, right? Or it could be verbally. But if they're attacking you, then you are putting yourself in a victim position and you're giving the control to that other thing that is attacking you and causing you to feel some sort of way. It could be the situation. It could, maybe you're personifying the situation or anthropomorphizing the situation. That situation is what is attacking you. Are you providing it the tools to do that? Is that why that's happening? Are you putting yourself in situations, in locations, in contexts that are full of those things that attack you, or that person, whatever it is? Something to look at, right? I mean, if you put yourself into a jungle, you can't be upset if you get attacked by jungle spiders and jaguars or whatever, right? Like, so if you put yourself in a situation that you feel is attacking you and causing you to experience this anxiety, then you know, maybe you need to not go into that situation, or you need to be more prepared for that. And this is where we're getting into the MBTI aspect of this. So we all have our different cognitive structures, right? We have our different cognitive functions, the actors that are playing different roles within us. And this is just my idea for this, but you know, if you are experiencing anxiety, the anxiety is probably not coming from the first and the second function, the dominant and the auxiliary function. If this is outside of your realm of understanding of the cognitive functions, that's fine. You might want to stop it and you might want to go through it, or just watch it and take it in and then go and explore and figure it out. But generally, your dominant function is a sense of strength and pride, right? It's strong. It's the hero. So it is probably not the one that's really experiencing the anxiety. Your auxiliary function is also a source of confidence and competence, right? You know that it's something that you're good at. You might not necessarily use it all the time, like intentionally to get out of problems, which is something you should do, which is tied to what we're talking about here. But it's a thing that you're like, yeah, I'm pretty good at that, right? But then we get down to the tertiary and the inferior function, the sidekick and the maverick, as I call it. So if you're thinking about that, those are the more vulnerable aspects of how you deal with other people and situations and how you understand and deal with yourself. And so those are likely, in my opinion, to be the ones that are taking on more of the anxiety. And if you have a different opinion on this, that's fine. Please tell me about it. But for me here, I'm an INFP. Introverted sensing is my tertiary function. It's this methodical guardian. It's the sidekick. It's the one I talk to when I need some confirmation about something. And I don't necessarily want to experience things outside of myself and get new feedback. And it's a source of vulnerableness within me. And also the maverick, extroverted thinking for me, I consider it to be this strategic commander, right? But it's a bit rebellious, right? It's a bit anti-heroic. And both of those hold a lot of the experiences of anxiety for me. Like usually for extroverted thinking, for example, I get anxiety about how do I structure things? How do I explain things in a logical fashion that other people can understand? How do I actually go through the steps of things? That's where the anxiety comes for me. And also within introverted sensing, like my memory, right? Just in general, like, am I able to recall the steps and implement the steps and the experiences and the education that I need in order to succeed? That's where anxiety is for me. That's where the realms of it are. So what has helped me, and I've explained this in another quicker video, but it's basically listening to your auxiliary function, listening to my auxiliary function, because that is going to give you a different set of tools that you are still capable and strong with, but they're probably not the direct approach that you've been doing, right? Like if I have anxiety, it's probably me going to my tertiary function and worrying about how things happened in the past and how that's going to remain the same into the future, right? And as well as my extroverted thinking inferior. So when that's happening and I'm experiencing this introverted sensing pull and extroverted intuition, like kind of making things harmful, like extrapolating on things in an unsupportive way, I need to just do it. I need to just go get experience and do something, get new feedback, get new perceptions, and make new connections outside of myself. That's what extroverted intuition is doing. And that is going to give me more feedback, more fuel, I suppose, to properly combat the anxiety if I'm going to attack it, if I'm feeling like I'm being attacked by it, right? If I feel overwhelmed by it, it's going to give me the cues and the path to help get out of the situation, right? And if I'm dealing with it, it's going to let me see different patterns and different perceptions, different approaches to how I can make better negotiations with it, I suppose, or reclaim what I'm trying to control, what I'm trying to hold on to. I also know that, for example, like an ENTJ or ESTJ, when you are experiencing anxiety, you're probably going to go to your tertiary function that's there to relieve it, right? You're going to go to, if you're an ENTJ, you're going to go to extroverted sensing, this instinctive warrior adventurer, right? And if you're an ESTJ, you're going to go to that extroverted intuition, innovative explorer kind of style, the alchemist, right? What that's doing is that's giving you more and more feedback and letting you continue to push through with your hero of extroverted thinking. But it's keeping you away from stopping and looking into your own subjective understanding of what is going on. And there's probably anxiety being caused from that, right? Like you need to keep up these actions, you need to keep up this energy instead of looking into like, well, what has your past shown you that's going to happen, right? Like what is the structure that will likely remain the same, and how can you take that time to compare and check over that? Or what patterns are evident within your mind, right? And how will you see that playing out long into the future? And so if you were to check in with yourself in that deep, internal understanding, like looking through your mind or your experiences to try to really understand what's going on, instead of taking action, like stopping, locking yourself away in your room, meditating, or writing a journal or reading your journal, if you do that, which you should, then it's going to give you more insight into how you can approach the situation instead of trying to force your way through it. Okay? So those are my experiences with it. And now I want to know yours. I want to know what's your type and what is your relationship with anxiety? What metaphors are you using? How do you see anxiety? And where is it coming from? And what have you done that has helped you? And I know those are some questions that might require a bit more typing than you want to. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can just say, I'm this type. This is what's helped me. And people like that. I like that. This is a place where we're trying to help people, right? So that is it for this video. Once again, I'm trying out this style, and I hope that it is helpful. Please also let me know comments about, constructive comments about how I can do this a little bit better. All right? Good luck, have fun. Peace.